Here we are on the Metal Voice with the exciting release recently that we were both anticipating highly.
Let me show the picture.
If you liked.
So this is my heavy metal. So there we go.
What does this button do? So it's Paul Bruce Dickinson.
Yep.
Yeah. And we're reading the book, man. What do you want to say?
All right.
Where do you want to start? If any of you, let's start with this way.
Let's start with this.
If anybody out there watching has read the book, throw your comments in throughout the show, and we'll be happy to read them, and we'll see if they correspond to Jimmy and I's feelings so far about what does this button do? It's an autobiography.
Yeah.
But you read it and you're not so sure because there's not a lot of details.
Not a lot of details.
So, Jimmy, you want to go first here or what's going on?
All right, let's start off with this earlier. So this is
spoiler
alert. Spoiler alert. If you want to read this book, I don't want to say turn it off, but don't turn it off. What the hell? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah,
spoiler alert.
We're going to be reviewing the book. If you want to read the book, I mean, we're not, going to go chapter by chapter.
Verse by verse.
So you go first, Jim. What do you want to say?
Right off the bat, I mean, overall picture. We'll go into the details of it all, okay? Like a little couple of holes here and there. Overall picture, oh, wait a second.
Hold on. Brush his teeth here.
There we go. Look at that.
I didn't know that.
It's so funny. We have two Paul Diano
I didn't know you were wearing
albums.
that shirt. This was not planned.
So, the book overall, I thought it was okay. It was sort of like a Reader's Digest version of what his whole life was.
Oh, that's well put. I like that.
Reader's Digest. For those youngins out there who don't know what Reader's Digest is, basically instead of reading a book this big, in 20 pages you get the condensed version of it. Close notes.
Hey man, that's really well put, Jim. I mean, we spend the first 80 pages, not a big book.
No.
80 pages talking about
370 pages.
Talking about his school days.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It hopefully will give some insight into his later years.
So his parents right off the bat, they were some sort of traveling circus of some sort. He got left with his grandparents. He went off to boarding school. Yeah, right? Yeah. And I mean, we've heard the story of him.
He's a bit of an outsider, I think. What you take away from those
5'6", 5'5". He was never like the tallest kid, the small kid. He was being picked on, and I guess because of that, he was very outgoing, right? And he was, what do you want to say, overachiever in a sense, right? He gets kicked out of school, and then he goes to boarding school and goes back to university.
But he's discovered Deep Purple by this time.
Yes. I want to point out a couple of stuff that I found interesting that sort of does not coordinate with the interviews that we have had over the years. Maybe actually you weren't on the Thunderstick interview and you weren't on the Jeff Date interview, but we'll get to that. So he joined Samson, right? And let me show everybody some props here. Here's Samson. You want to hold that, Alan?
Yeah, I've got this on. I've got this on cassette. Remember cassettes?
Head Tactics.
Vinyl's still around. Cassettes aren't. Oh, Chris Aylmer's on here. He died of cancer as well.
Yeah. And
Samson.
Bruce. And if everybody wants to see what it looks like, this was the compilation of the first two albums, right? Shock Tactics.
Head Tactics.
That's right. He doesn't really get into much detail. He says, Samson,
put some meat on the bones, Bruce.
Samson, we had the lawyer problems, we had this problems, we had so many problems, we could never make it big as a band. But he doesn't point any problems out. He doesn't talk about anything.
Let's look at the positive. Bite-sized chapters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The whole, they're probably their biggest tour ever with the Power Slave tour. Fit nicely in 3 pages. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It puts some meat on the bones, man. Here's a guy who's lead singer for the biggest band ever in metal. Okay, let's get that off the top. He's a fencer. He's an author because this is his 4th book. He's a pilot. That's interesting enough, right? A lead singer of Iron Maiden who's also a pilot. So where's the pizzazz, man? Where's the, you read it, okay, chuckle, the way he phrases that, but there's there's no exciting we read Ozzy's book. I was laughing throughout the whole thing. And of course, the epitome of all the autobiographies.
It wasn't the worst book. It wasn't the worst book. It was just a condensed book.
Now, did he actually? It's David Lee Roth, "Crazy from the Heat." Now, that's an autobiography. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. The stories are entertaining.
Yeah.
Tony Iommi did the same thing. Bite-sized chapters, little chapters, and his ghostwriter's better writer than Bruce, whatever. But, the bite size, okay, but that was interesting. There was interesting stories there. So you read a nice little chapter. Oh, it's fun. Before going to bed, I'll read just one more chapter. It's 3 pages kind of thing.
Barry Purkis, who I interviewed to talk about the Samson years, had more to say than Bruce had to say about Samson. They were a fairly up-and-coming band, right? They're big. They're new wave of British heavy metal. They were opening up and working with and headlining with Maiden, right? And they were a big band. He sort of like tosses Barry Purkis to the side in a sense. Here's Barry. Barry's told me the stories. He had to audition to get into Samson. He had to audition to get into Iron Maiden in the early years. So they picked him because he was a great drummer. And you could hear that in his music of today and yesterday.
Who Thunderstick?
Thunderstick. Oh, however, Bruce, he sort of like just throws him under the bus in a sense. Like, man, oh man, come on, man. I didn't hear the stories. I wanted to hear stories about Samson. I didn't hear them.
Well, yeah, okay.
One of the most famous story of Samson is The Ides of March and Thunderburst. How the songs were identical, and no mention of that because there's probably some legal issues. Who knows?
But again, if you're gonna make these stories, let's put some meat on the bones. Let's flesh them out. And the stories that are a little fleshed out, the ones we all know. We've heard them for 30 years now. Peeing in the
peeing.
It's all stuff that we've heard. But that's the one that's got a little bit more body to it, as we say. And again, Bruce Dickinson is an interesting character. You would think so. And I was just disappointed that his book was not particularly over interesting. I was expecting more from a guy that's larger than life. Let's face it. Bruce has done it all.
Some cool mentions. I don't know if you read this part or not, but he mentions Riot Narita. Like, it stands out. He goes, "Oh man, that airport, Narita, was named after, Riot named their album after Narita." Right?
He enjoyed Japan. Right? He enjoyed
Japan. But it was a nice, cool little mention. Then there was a Graham Bonnet mention. I don't think you got this, and I'm rereading it and rereading it. So Tattooed Millionaire was actually some sort of thing about Graham Bonnet.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
I didn't get it.
I thought it was about Motley Crue.
I think there is Nikki Sixx there, but it's also, he says something about Graham Bonnet. I don't want to read it out, but for all you fans of Bruce Dickinson, read that sentence. It's a very vague and poorly written sentence where you just don't know what he's saying.
Now, did he call Steve Harris the Pope? Right? This is interesting, but again, it wasn't flushed out. But when he was talking about No Prayer for the Dying, we're doing some of this stuff the same, and we just got off, and that's what Adrian brought it up at the same time, if you believe the Mick Wall autobiography, Run to the Hills, saying, guys, we just finished, which is considered Bruce, and I think Adrian did too, their best album so far, which is Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, and we're going to go back to the killer sounding Iron Maiden. So they both started to step back. Bruce didn't say anything. Adrian did. Adrian's gone.
Yeah.
But Bruce alludes to it in the book, saying, if the Pope is always right, why question him?
That was a big shot. That was a big shot. That was a big shot.
I think that's Steve Harris. He's referring to Steve Harris,
he's referring to Steve Harris.
He
painted Steve in a very dictator, Pope-like...
Sergeant Major!
image. And I don't know.
Steve write a book? That would be an interesting
book. Steve would write a great book. What else? He explains why he left Maiden, going to your point now. Why did he leave Maiden? He felt like he needed to do something creatively different, right? He wanted to step into the unknown. And that's what he says in the book. And it's pretty clear why he left.
But, again, okay, we knew he was just going to do one song for the Nightmare on Elm Street, which was Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter.
Yeah.
You want to do more? Hey, we've got some money. Why don't you do a solo album? Okay, whatever. We'll do all the young dudes, and we'll throw this together. Just out of, have fun. I actually saw that tour, in North America. They only did a few select dates. Was there. They were having a blast doing, I think it was Sin City as an encore one night, and Black Knight from Deep Purple. And And then he started getting serious about a second one, and that's where the music kind of changed. He was kind of doing stuff that didn't fit into the Iron Maiden groove. Something he wanted to do as early as Somewhere in Time. Right. But those acoustic songs that he brought didn't cut the mustard. They all thought he lost the plot, and by the time no prayer to the
hold on, Alan.
Yeah, okay, Jim.
Props.
He loves that. This was his favorite, one of his favorite stage shows. But again, he wanted to No Prayer for the Dying. That's when he was thinking, oh, this is more of the same. How long is this as good as it gets? And that's kind of rekindled the feelings he had back during the Somewhere in Time recording session. So you can understand why he left. You can understand where he was coming from. But again, Adrian left the band. We got Yannick in, and that's it. It's like
condensed. What I did like, let's look at the stuff that we did like in the book. What I did like, he gave a realistic view of how much abuse the body takes being a singer of one of the biggest bands in the world, touring for a year or two on the road. Like, he was completely finished. And I saw him in Montreal, and so there's a part about Montreal when he was on the Number of the Beast tour. And he said he had some sort of arm back issue. I can't remember what it was exactly. Yeah,
because he was headbanging so much.
He was headbanging so much. And I was there. Actually, it was general admission. I was right at the front row. I was like 14 years old or 15. And I saw him. I did not see or notice that he was hurting. He must have done sort of cortisone shots. I don't know what it was. But he was just going wild on stage. And at the end of the show, he just started breaking his mic stand. He just threw it into the audience. He did not look that he was hurt. Then again, he's holding it in, right? But it was fascinating to see how much abuse the voice takes, how much a body takes being a singer in one of the biggest bands in the world.
And it's not an easy gig. Blaze could probably attest to that. And you're singing these high registered. He's discovered is what he calls a second voice, which enables him to do what he does so well. So, what do we got? You got any comments here?
And I got your go ahead. Finish.
The Wheeled Headbanger loves Zach's book, Give Metal to the Children. Didn't read that one. Read lots of other ones. He is such a good orator. He needs to translate it into book form. Good point. Because Bruce to listen to is, and again, maybe that's why my expectations are high. He's just a pure delight to listen to. The stories, his enthusiasm when he speaks. So.
Finish. I thought he was British. He is British. I don't know if somebody else said he was British. And Sean, of course, long live right because of Narita. Here's another point for all you real fanatics out there. So the Three Tremors. I'm not sure if you remember the
Three Tremors or Tenors?
The Three Tremors, which was supposed to be Dickinson, Halford, and Jeff Tate. But Bruce wanted Ronnie James Dio instead.
Oh, okay. Instead of who? Jeff Tate?
Instead of Jeff Tate. So Bruce wanted, and so Bruce is sort of, this was something serious that Bruce was talking about. He really wanted Dio, and his management says, okay, meet with Jeff Tate. He meets with Jeff Tate, and somehow it just didn't click with Jeff, right? I asked Jeff Tate this question about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, right.
And Jeff Tate said, no, it was nothing ever serious. It was just something that got blown out of proportion. We were just having dinner and someone overheard our conversation.
And he said the same thing when we interviewed him 2 years ago, right? I think this is a question you just love asking Jeff every time you talk to him.
That's right. And Bruce's the real answer, or at least his version of the story, was basically, I didn't want to do business with Jeff Tate.
It was in the music mags at the time. I remember that. They were talking about this upcoming project. Yeah. But again, it might have been just rumors and somebody put into print, and the legend has grown ever since.
Now, he does talk about Metallica, where he's quoted in saying something like, and again, I don't remember exactly, that we're better than Metallica. And, how Lars sort of backed off and didn't say nothing in response to that. That was mighty big of Bruce, of sort of like releasing that information. But I mean, we all knew it. It wasn't something old. He does talk, and this is the part of the book that I like the best. It was a non-Maiden part. You probably didn't read this, Alan, because I know you're just quickly reading it.
Here's a book we're reviewing. Read it. Yeah, okay.
So at the end of the book, or close to the end of the book, he really goes in depth about his cancer. So he had throat cancer. And what I really liked about this was, and some people probably don't like this, he went through the stages of being treated for cancer and surviving cancer. And, it was really touching in that sense. So if there's anything you'll get out of this book is surviving cancer. He said that he did everything he could. He read up everything about cancer, any edge he can get, like maybe some antioxidant drinks or whatever it was. He used every edge, and he's talking about how swollen his throat was, how he thought he'd never sing again, how he was in agony and on fire through the treatment for the radiation and the chemo. He talked to chemotherapy. And I got to tell you, that part was really cool. But from a Maiden perspective, kind of a letdown, like you said.
But his life is not just Maiden, right?
Yeah.
So that's why... but it's really glossed over. I mean...
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like...
I mean, you can't say, okay, it'd be a 400,000-page book if you go through every detail of every tour. And again, that's the monotony of the touring, and that's not what he signed up for. And he makes that clear.
Yeah.
But I guess there could have been a few more meat on the bones.
I agree with you. I mean, overall, what would you rate this book?
Well, I'm going to finish it first. I mean,
so far.
You kind of surprised me with Friday night. But so far, no. I mean, I don't know, 6 out of 10. I mean, like I said, I've got hundreds of autobiographies that I've read, that I've enjoyed, and this one I keep reading and hoping it's going to get better and more with a little bit more pizzazz, a little bit more exciting stories that we haven't heard. And
yeah, it's all about expectations. Tom says, yeah. It is all about expectations.
I mean, when we knew this book was coming out, and I've got the Adventures of Lord Iffy Boat Race at home, if anybody cares to read it.
Is it good? How was that?
That's wacky, man. But at least it was entertaining. It was so wacky, you didn't know what the hell was going on. Some guy wearing high heel shoes around and is an eccentric.
Did you see the movie A Chemical Wedding?
No, I haven't seen that.
I've seen it. It's probably one of the worst movies ever made.
Okay. So we get that out right away. But again, we were looking forward to the release. Hey, Bruce has got a book. I mean, oh, finally, yeah, Bruce got a book. We're gonna hear Bruce's version. And man, ooh,
it's It's based on Aleister Crowley, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's a low budget. Look, it's his attempt into making a movie. It's low budget.
Again, filmmaker, author, pilot.
Yeah,
Bruce Dickinson. What does this button do? Let's find out. But man, we don't really find out too much.
So it's a great book if you like a quick read, but if you really want meat, like me and Alan, I guess we really enjoy sort of reading the making of an album, right? The real making of an album, the inspirations of the songs and how they got put together. So it feels like that was kind of just left out, right? Don't you feel that was kind of all left out? And I don't know.
And again, he's in a little bit of a peculiar situation. You can't really trash Steve too much when you got to go work with him. And he makes allusions to the Barnyard Studio and, wow, we're really going high-tech on this one. And scared to say anything because it's against what Maiden's all about and not willing to take a chance. So, we get the feeling, but we knew that. We got his perspective on it, but we all knew that's the reason why Bruce has been covered on lots of subjects. And you want to say anything about why he came back into the fold, Jim? I mean,
you know what? He comes back into the fold, and I think you could understand why he did it. He got his sort of taste of being a solo artist. He got his feet wet there, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to come back to my family. What made me who I am today? And I think it was well said. He left out his wives, his children, his divorces, or divorce. I can't remember. He did this on purpose. He states this in the book right at the end. I left out my wives, children, and divorce. I think because he said he's going to go down a slippery slope once he goes down that road. And there is nothing about his kids or kid. I'm not sure if he has one. I know he's Austin. I'm not sure who else he has. I think that's what makes a person is sort of all that extra personal stuff. That's an autobiography.
Yeah. Because so you're saying feels a little incomplete by not mentioning that.
That's right. Because people, like, no matter how you slice it, your relationships with friends or loved ones shapes who you are and who you become. And sometimes they motivate you and they unmotivate you or demotivate you or. I don't know. I think it's a big part of who you are.
But I think that's the reason why he spent so much time on his earlier years, to show where he, why he is and how he's grown. So your point is valid, and he does do that for the earlier years, but
then he leaves it all out later. You have to. I think it's something you just have to mention. I'm not saying you have to go into every detail about being married and your life being married, but I think part of why you got divorced and how you got divorced and the whole Nikki Sixx incident, I mean, he slept with his wife or whatever the case was, I think that should have been explored.
Well,
because I think that's part of exposing yourself.
It's
that's a biography.
I mean, you don't have to go into that.
It's sort of exposing who you are and who you are today because of your mistakes that you made along the way, or not the mistakes you didn't make along the way. So I don't know. I think it's a big part of who you are. I would have liked more. He doesn't really mention Paul Di'Anno. He mentions sort of like the singer. He does mention his
no, but why would he? I mean,
why shouldn't he? I mean,
Paul's gone and he comes in. What's
Clive Burr? I don't know Clive Burr. He didn't really go into much about Clive Burr. He did.
But Jimmy, I'm 3/4 away of the book. Dave Murray's been mentioned once.
Exactly. I mean, and again, it's all about relationships.
Steve was about wanted to throw me out of the band the first tour because I wouldn't let him stand where he wanted to. The singer was supposed to be out front, and I kept moving his monitors around. That's basically all he said about Steve.
I think, he's
besides calling him the Pope.
He's toured with them how many times? Like 20, 30 times around the world. You think they would have more stories, more connections together. You think there'd be some sort of bond, and I think that is what's missing.
Well, if you want to see, it goes back to like Tony Iommi's book, Iron Man. That's all it was. Stories about Ozzy setting Bill on fire, spray painting Bill green. It's just great story. But he did talk about his wives, Lita Ford.
That's right.
And his version is quite different from Lita's version in her autobiography. So maybe it's a good thing that Bruce stayed away from that quandary.
Tom says he wanted to protect his personal life. Yeah, no, I get that too.
I respect that. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't have a problem with that.
How's this, Tom? I can respect that, but if you really want a great biography, sometimes you have to just expose yourself to a certain degree, because I don't know, I just that's what makes a beautiful biography, because it's all about pieces. It's all about pieces and who you are today from what you did and where you came from, and removing all the relationships in his band, removing all the relationship in his life, his personal life, you can't really put together how you become who you are.
And again, we're not saying it has to be the dirt, right? This is Bruce Dickinson. We're just saying for the character. The guy does everything. Radio, host, filmmaker. He did really all his own videos. I've got the DVD anthologies of Bruce Dickinson. He paid and he scripted out all the videos. Great lyricist, great vocalist, biggest band of all time. Pilot to boot. On top of that, he's a pilot, which flies the band around while they're touring. So this guy is Mr. Excitement. This guy is fascinating. Yeah. And we're not getting that through the stories in the book, I find.
It's okay. It was all right. It's a quick read. It's something on the plane. You're bored in an airport and you just want to flip through some pages. Most of the stories we know. We know about his days with his early days, like you said, the peeing in his teachers or his headmaster's meal. Okay, but anyways, so more or less 6 out of 10. That's what I would say on this book. It's not the worst book. It's not the best book. It's just a nice reader's digest.
Paul Di'Anno the Beast is probably...
That's kind of like the other end of the spectrum.
Like, that's...
Okay, we don't want to know this much.
Maybe that's a 3 out of 10. But...
all right, you ready for this, Alan? This is the next segment of the show.
What do we got here?
I'm going to surprise you totally. You ready for this? All right, hold this up.
Okay, yes, hello.
And I will hold... Because I don't have the album.
I know this album.
And here's Peace of Mind. All right,
yes,
folks.
Okay, yeah.
Alan... Yeah. Which album do you prefer?
Oh, Jim.
Exactly. Oh, Jim.
Did we do this already?
No, we didn't do Peace of Mind versus Number the Beast.
Jim?
Yes.
Very good.
You like how I just threw it on you?
But Jim,
you were outside in the cold, and I go...
You know what, Jim?
Here we are, yes.
This is a good album. Great album. Fantastic album. Unbelievable album. Nico's in the band. And he talks about that. Hey, Nico, that's a positive about the book. He talks about where Eagles Day are and how he had to learn that.
I've heard that story before.
I heard the story, but he really... But Jim, I mean, this is the one that everybody had. When this came out, everybody... Run to the Hills, that's all you heard everywhere. Then we got into the deeper tracks, like 22 Acacia Avenue, Hallowed Be Thy Name, which made our top 10, obviously, of top 10 Maiden songs of all time. Number of the Beast itself. Children of the Dam, which is one of my all-time favorite. Invaders, that was the one that made me be a little man-awed out. And Gangland, which they still regret putting to that instead of Total Eclipse. But he explains why in the book. So read the book and find out why Gangland made it and not Total Eclipse.
Here we have Number of the Beast. Now, when we look at Peace of Mind, I'll just give a little brief overview of this.
Great album. Yeah. You know, when this came out, Jim, just a side story here. I said, well, the next one, he's got to be in a sarcophagus or something because he's dead. So the next album, he's probably going to be in a sarcophagus, in a coffin somewhere. And then after that, they'll probably raise him out of the ground. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't know it was going to be an Egyptian-themed power slave, but I got
just a fast forward right here.
Live after death. Correct. No, but Where Eagles There, great song. Revelations, fantastic. Flight of Icarus made our top 10. That's the...
Die With Your Boots On. This was like...
It was fun to listen to.
I've counted.
If you're gonna die.
I've counted. It's like...
If you're gonna die.
34 times they say Die With Your Boots On.
The Trooper, all-time classic. Come on, one of the top 3 Maiden songs of all time. Still Life, which he loved. I still can't get my head around that. Quest for Fire, okay. Sun and Steel, they actually played that on the radio at the time this was released. I distinctly remember hearing Sun and Steel on the radio. And To Tame a Land, which was okay.
I was a first day buyer on this, by the way. I got this the first day it came out. I ran to the store, and I remember it saying no keyboards used, something like that on the album, right? Now you've talked about all the tracks on both albums, and of course there's a little bit, but it doesn't mean it's less. So which one would you pick?
For what?
What's your favorite album? Which do you prefer over the other?
Number of the Beast.
There we go. So Alan picks Number of the Beast, and you know what, Alan? I pick Number of the Beast too.
Now.
As small as it is, I pick Number of the Beast.
Now let me say that you're asking me.
Yes.
Now I'm a guy.
Even though I'm wearing a Killer
I bought
shirt,
this, like you said, the first week it came out.
Yeah, me too.
That one, the same thing. The Maiden, we all ran out and got the Maiden albums right away. Okay, we went out having money for Halloween or Fastway or Accept. Well, we all had money to go and get that Maiden album. Okay. Yeah. Now, if I was 30 years later and listening to both of these for the first time,
yes,
my answer might be different.
That's a good point. I mean, and you know what? A lot of the younger fans, let's say younger than us, would put this before this.
Look,
you're right.
Look at
you're right. I mean, because
my daughter's favorite one is Virtual 11.
Yeah. It's, I guess, you remember, and I know Giles, we had the same conversation with Giles, and he says the seventh son. It's because when he was young, that was his first Maiden when it came out, right? So yeah,
So if you're talking North America, yes, they came here and did a club tour with Killers. You don't get me started on Killers because that's a great album. That's second overall as far as I'm concerned. But they did North America, Iron Maiden. This is the album that launched them, as far as I'm concerned, in North America.
It had sort of the aggression of the first album. And of
course,
Bruce, and Bruce was just. This is
and that's not taking anything away from Paul because Killers is my second favorite Iron Maiden album.
You know, he was kind of like a hybrid. Between this album, more operatic in vocals, and of course, Killers was more gritty. So this is sort of like an operatic, gritty sort of vocal sound. He's kind of like playing both, and that's what makes this album probably
well mixed.
So great, right? Yeah,
Martin Birch,
incredible. And
you can see the cufflinks, and Bruce talks about that you can actually see his cufflinks here on his jeans because his legs weren't long enough, so he had to fold up the bottom. I always thought that looked a bit like a farmer, but he explains why, because he absolutely had to go out and get a pair of jeans and a leather jacket, and the jeans are a little bit too long on him, so he turned up the bottoms. So.
Well, there you have it. On a Friday night, a live stream, we talked about the Number of the Beast and Peace of Mind. Just a quick little debate on which we thought was better.
Who else? Anybody out there read the book? Let's see here. The Wheeled Headbanger prefers Peace. Number was cool, but many tunes that are awesome are on Peace.
Con says, I'm 44 and Peace kicks ass. No, it does kick ass.
Yeah, we're not disputing that.
We're not saying that. We're just saying that if we had
But wait a minute. He's X amount of years younger than us.
Yes, a little bit younger.
So and again, we're right there, kind of side by side. But we discovered Maiden through Number of the Beast. And as you know, that first album you hear of a band tends to stick with you a bit longer. So
there you have it, Alan. That's pretty much it.
Yep. Trooper, yeah, good one. Flight of Icarus, yeah, I know, strong album. We're not disputing that. But if we had to narrow it down, you were on a deserted island and you were allowed only one Iron Maiden album. What would it be?
And just to close things off, here's another great album by Bruce.
Somewhere in Time. I remember that jacket. He talks about the jacket with the pants lighting up and the jacket lighting up with a little beating heart. It actually worked in Montreal. I remember it working for a while.
And if you really look at this album cover,
this album cover is
a work of art.
Yeah, it's great.
A work of art.
It's a really, really well done album.
Blade Runner, it's just, and the Blade Runner was really big at the time. The whole imagery of
so
Blade
much
Runner.
details and
Beautiful album
it's
cover.
a great album cover.
Bought this the day it came out.
Yeah.
Love it. And you know what's funny? We always talk about this, how we don't want to show anybody we're playing keyboards like this. We'll play keyboards on the guitar because that'll change things.
Yeah. And it did. Look at Priest did after that with Turbo.
Yeah, I'm a Turbo lover.
So.
All right, guys. That's it. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Friday night. Nice little Maiden, Bruce's book. I guess, if you want a quick read, pick it up. And Number of the Beast rules.
Peace of Mind still there. It's very good.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.